Before you walk away from this, stop. Because the behavior you just interpreted as disinterest might be the exact opposite of what it looks like. And the cost of getting this wrong is not just a missed opportunity, it is the specific, quietly devastating experience of walking away from someone who is interested, misreading the whole thing, and finding out later, when it's too late, that you were wrong. This video exists because female disinterest and female attraction can look almost identical from the outside, and the men who know the difference are the ones who never make that mistake. The ones who don't know it, they keep leaving rooms that were built for them. Here is a finding that reframes this entire topic before a single specific behavior is covered. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that men systematically underestimate female sexual and romantic interest, a phenomenon researchers call misperception of female interest. This is not a small margin of error. The consistent pattern, replicated across multiple studies, shows that men read female attraction cues as significantly less interested than they actually are. Meanwhile, a separate body of research shows that women, particularly when genuinely attracted to someone, often behave in ways that read as cool, disinterested, or indifferent. Put those two findings together, and what you get is a consistent, predictable, almost comedic pattern of two people who are both interested and neither of whom correctly reads the situation. He thinks she's not interested. She is. She thinks her behavior is clearly communicating interest. It isn't. And the whole thing collapses because the language she's speaking and the language he's reading are two completely different things. This video is the translation guide for that specific disconnect. 5 specific behaviors that read as disinterest from the outside, and what the research on female psychology says they actually mean. Before we get to behavior number 1, I need to flag something about behavior number 3. It is the one that men most consistently misread as a clear, unambiguous rejection, and it is, according to attachment psychology, one of the most reliable indicators of genuine, significant attraction. By the time we get there, you'll understand exactly why. But behavior 1 is where the pattern starts. This first behavior kills more developing connections than almost anything else, and its misinterpretation is so consistent, so universal, and so completely logical while still being completely wrong that understanding why it happens is its own education in female psychology. She responds with 2 words, 1 sentence. A reply that has the minimum viable content to technically answer what was asked, and he reads it as, "She is not interested." She does not want this conversation to continue. She is giving me less, so I will take less and eventually take nothing. Here is what she is actually doing in a significant percentage of cases where this occurs. Research on impression management and romantic interest, specifically work from social psychologist Rowland Miller at Sam Houston State University on self-presentation in attraction contexts, found that women who are genuinely interested in someone frequently engage in what Miller describes as interest concealment behaviors. Behaviors designed to prevent the full extent of their interest from being visible before they have determined how the interest will be received. Short responses are a primary interest concealment behavior. They are the conversational equivalent of keeping the cards close while the assessment continues. The internal logic is completely consistent. She is interested. She is not certain whether he is equally interested or whether the interest is asymmetric. Responding with full enthusiasm before this assessment is complete feels risky. It exposes more than she is comfortable exposing before she knows what she is exposing it to. So she manages the response size while the assessment continues. The thing that distinguishes this version of short responses from genuine disinterest is in the content of the short response. A genuinely disinterested response closes conversational doors. It answers without creating any opening for continuation. An interest-concealing short response is brief but open. It answers and leaves something to respond to. The door is technically closed but not locked. If the short response left anywhere to go, any thread that could be followed, any question that could be asked, she did not close the door. She just kept it smaller than the room it leads to. The second behavior gets cited most frequently as evidence of disinterest, and it is the one where the female psychology research most directly contradicts the male default interpretation. Most men operate on a framework where initiation indicates interest and non-initiation indicates its absence. This is a reasonable framework for male behavior. It is not an accurate framework for female behavior. Research from Deborah Tannen's extensive work on gendered communication patterns, combined with decades of sociological research on courtship norms, has consistently established that women, across age groups, cultures, and social contexts, initiate significantly less frequently than their level of genuine interest would predict. The suppression of initiation is not a sign of low interest. It is a deeply socialized behavioral pattern that persists regardless of interest level. Here is the mechanism. Women are socialized from a very early age to wait to be pursued rather than to initiate pursuit. This socialization is not conscious. It operates below deliberate decision-making in the behavioral defaults that early social learning produces. The result is that a woman can be genuinely, significantly interested in someone and still not initiate. Not because she has decided not to, but because not initiating is the behavioral default that social conditioning installed. Additionally, and this is the layer that most people miss, there is a specific version of non-initiation that is actually the opposite of disinterest. When a woman is significantly attracted to someone and the vulnerability of initiating feels high, she will sometimes deliberately not initiate as a form of self-protection. The thought process is, if I initiate and he's not as interested, I have revealed more than he has. So she waits, and while she waits, she is watching whether he initiates. The non-initiation is the test, not the answer. If she is not initiating but is consistently responsive, if the responses come warmly and the conversation builds when contact is made, the non-initiation is not disinterest. It is the behavioral expression of interest managed carefully until she knows what the interest is landing in. Now here is the third behavior, the one that most consistently reads as rejection and most consistently isn't. And the psychology behind it is both fascinating and completely counterintuitive. Here is what happens. In a group setting, she is warm, engaged, expressive, and relaxed with everyone around her, and then she interacts with him, the specific person she is most attracted to in the room. And something changes. She becomes slightly more formal, slightly more measured. The ease that characterizes her interaction with everyone else is somehow absent specifically with the person she finds most interesting. From the outside, this reads as, she is comfortable with everyone except him, which means she is least interested in him. From the inside, the psychology is precisely reversed. Research on self-presentation and romantic anxiety, specifically from psychologist Mark Leary's work on social anxiety and impression formation, found that the degree of social performance anxiety a person experiences in an interaction correlates directly with how much they care about the impression they are making. People are relaxed with those whose opinions they are relatively indifferent to. They become self-conscious, managed, and measured with those whose opinions genuinely matter. In other words, she is coldest with the person she is most interested in because his impression of her is the one she is most invested in getting right. The warmth she shows everyone else is the warmth of someone who is not particularly concerned about how she comes across. The measured quality she shows him is the measured quality of someone who is acutely aware that how she comes across to this specific person actually matters. This is the behavior that is most important not to misread. Because walking away from a woman who is acting slightly cooler toward you than toward everyone else is, in a significant number of cases, walking away from the person in the room who finds you most compelling. The fourth behavior generates the most frustration and the most misinterpretation. And understanding it requires understanding something specific about how attraction and self-protection coexist in the female nervous system. She is warm and present and clearly engaged one day. And then the next interaction, she is slightly distant, slightly cooler, not cold, not rude, but clearly not as open as she was before. and he reads this inconsistency as either playing games or being genuinely inconsistent in her interest. Neither interpretation is usually accurate. The more common explanation, documented in attachment research, specifically in work on what researcher Phillip Shaver describes as approach-avoidance conflict in romantic contexts, is that genuine attraction produces both the desire to move toward and the impulse to self-protect. These two impulses alternate. A warm interaction produces connection and brings her closer, and then the vulnerability of that closeness activates the protective impulse, which produces a slight withdrawal. And then the distance produces the desire for closeness again, which produces warmth. This oscillation, forward and back, warm and slightly cool, open and slightly more guarded, is not instability of interest. It is the nervous system managing genuine interest in real time. The direction of travel across the entire pattern is toward. The individual oscillations within that direction produce the appearance of inconsistency. The way to read this correctly is not to focus on any individual warm or cool interaction. It is to look at the trajectory. If the pattern over time is moving toward more openness, more consistency, more ease, the apparent inconsistency is the path to something real, not evidence that nothing real exists. Here is the complete picture of what female disinterest and female attraction look like from the outside, and why they are so consistently confused. Short responses that leave the door open are not disinterest. Non-initiation from someone who responds warmly is not disinterest. Formality and self-consciousness specifically around one person is not disinterest. Oscillation between warmth and slight withdrawal is not disinterest. All four of these behaviors are the female nervous system managing genuine attraction under conditions of genuine uncertainty. Managing it carefully, sometimes imperfectly, and almost always in ways that read as cooler than the internal experience actually is. The research is consistent on this. Women underexpress attraction signals significantly more than men do. Men underread female attraction signals significantly more than they should. And the gap between those two tendencies is where the most significant missed connections in human relationships consistently live. Before you conclude she's not interested, look at the quality of the short response. Look at whether she responds warmly, even if she doesn't initiate. Look at whether she is measured with you specifically while being relaxed with everyone else. Look at the direction of the oscillation, not the oscillation itself. She may be telling you exactly what she feels, just not in the language you were taught to read. Now, before this video ends, there is a question that sits directly underneath everything we just covered. We just established that she may be interested even when she looks disinterested. But how do you know when it has moved past interest into something more complete? When the managing and the concealing and the oscillating have settled into something she is no longer guarding? Because interest and love are different neurological states, and the behavioral evidence of each one is completely different. The signs of love are not louder versions of the signs of interest. They are a different category entirely. They involve a specific kind of sharing that only appears when the love is complete, when the self-concept has expanded to include him, when withholding any part of herself starts to feel like a cost too high to pay. The video on your screen right now covers exactly those signs. It is called "If She Shares This, She Is 100% in Love with You." It covers the 5 specific sharing behaviors, backed by Arthur Aaron's research, Brené Brown's vulnerability findings, and John Gottman's long-term connection studies, that only appear when the interest we covered today has developed into something permanent. Today's video told you how to read the interest correctly. That video tells you when the interest has become something you never have to question again. Watch it now.